Hi, welcome to the Mohua Show. My name is Mohua Chinappa and I am an author, entrepreneur, and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, in today's episode, we have Rishi Chhapolia. Rishi is originally from Bangalore. Rishi is a filmmaker based in New York City, and in his films, he aims to depict complex relationships and metaphysical themes. Okay, that's a really big term. He's a novice writer, director, and he's worked on 30 plus short films, commercials, and music videos. He's currently an undergraduate at Columbia University studying philosophy. Yes, you heard me right. In today's time and age, we have this young guy who's studying philosophy. Welcome, Rishi, in today's episode.
Hi, Mohua. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
I think there are so many film goers who will keep hearing the word meta, and metaverse, but I don't know, how much of it is really understood by everybody. So tell us the most meta film that you've seen, one that was mind-blowing meta and also really a pretentious meta film. And how tricky is the genre? Because this is all at a very, very, it's a realm that people don't completely understand. Of course, there's KGF that's happened in India. And, so now it's like move over 3D, 4D, and even 5D. We have metaverse, the alternate digital reality. So tell me, which is the most pseudo meta film you've seen?
Yeah, that's a fun question. I think there's this movie which came out recently called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's about this Asian American mother. She runs a laundromat, and the IRS is like kind of investigating her company, and so she has to. At the same time, she's kind of estranged from her daughter, and so she's trying to fix all these problems. But then she has to interact with her counterparts across different multiverses. So there's like different ways her life could have gone if she had just made different decisions. So there are all these different versions of herself that exist, right? So it's like in one universe she's an actress, in one she's she's a chef, etc. So she has to like kind of collaborate with them to defeat the IRS and save the relationship with her daughter. So I would say, I mean, that's a pretty crazy movie. It just came out, so if people have access to the film, it should be in theaters. They should definitely watch it. I think that when I say metaphysical themes, I think it's more to do with more than the subject matter of the film itself. I think it's the way the story is told. I think what I'm really interested in is more on top of plot. I want to build a world, right? So I think the two things that are very important to me in a film is is character. I think character is the most important thing. Before theme, before setting, before story, before anything, it's character. And the second most important thing is the world. Having a very, very tight, very insular world with its own, with its very particular specifics and its own rules and everything. It doesn't have to be science fiction. It doesn't have to be fantasy. It can be very real, but it has to be its self-contained world. And so that's what I think I mean when I say metaphysical themes and complex relationships. It captures those two things. It's complex relationships between these real human characters while depicting the story against a very particular backdrop, and using that the world should be as much a part of the story as these people are.
So, the films in the metaverse world is like very self aware and self referential, often featuring direct instances where characters break the fourth wall. So, your film, First Facade, is meta. Okay, what went behind the choice? What was the choice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was interested in having a bit of fun. I just wanted to have some fun, and I thought that that would kind of at that time. So I was deliberating. Do I want to really do film with my life? Do I should I go into consulting, or so that's like a decision I'd be making at the time. And um, I it's because film, the process of filmmaking had been on my mind so much. I'm like, okay, what if we tried making a movie about a movie? And then, that can get a bit hackneyed. It can be a bit, like, okay, it's the same old thing. It's like this, young guy who's trying to make some like a Chris Nolan movie about a movie within a movie, and it's like the inception of movies. And so I I imbued it with this with the theme of this play, Dr. Faustus, that I'd fallen in love with when I read in high school. Um, and so I kind of combined these two elements, um, and yeah, and I think another element of the film being about a film was kind of blurring the boundary between what's real and what's happening within the film. So for example, the protagonist, right? Nick, he what the things he's saying, the things he's feeling. What I wanted to keep it like a guessing game for the audience. Is it, is he role playing his character? Is he method acting right now, or is that how he genuinely feels? So that's, I think that just having some fun. I thought it would be interesting.
The film you said is about ambition unchecked. Okay, films are in some way or any sort of literature or people. It's always an expression of yourself. So, were you ever overambitious? And if you were, when did you realize that you've crossed the line? And did you ever have a fallout with all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think I've been extremely ambitious for, like, for most of my life, especially since high school, and because I was I went to TISB in Bangalore, where and I was kind of one of the only people who was interested in doing something creative, and I was studying theater and English, and especially as a guy, I think those things were a bit unorthodox. And then even after coming to college, I was very kind of I was very stubborn about it. I'm like, you know what? No, I don't want to do econ. I don't want to do CS. I want to make films, and I'm into literature and theater and film, cinema, and that's kind of what I want to do with my life. So even at college, a lot of people around me would. I think I still felt as if I was off the beaten path because I didn't choose to go to film school. So I studied philosophy, and I was very engaged with the creative kind of community and the performing arts communities here. And so in I think my the way I've experienced ambition is trying to always be different, and kind of sometimes that's gotten into my head of, well, okay, like maybe I'm special, like maybe because I want to do something different, I am different, I am a genius, I am special, and of course that's not true. And so I think it's when I've had, it would be hard to kind of pinpoint specific incidents, but there have been times where that I've kind of been consumed by that, and that's kind of tinted a lot of my actions and perspectives. And I think well, when I was writing this film, I was in the throes of one of these phases where I was kind of just like, I was very frustrated. I was like, I'm so ambitious, I'm so hardworking, I'm so intelligent. Like, why am I not able to get the success that I want? I'd been struggling with some things at the time, and so that's this film. The idea and the story for this film was kind of born out of that place of dejection and that frustration. And so I wanted to depict this character who is, who thinks he's special, who's very ambitious, and who thinks he deserves better than others. But when you see him as an audience member, you just realize that he's not a bad person. He's a nice person. He is hardworking and talented, but sometimes he just has to learn to accept things and be a part of the process rather than the best. And that's how I felt about myself as well.
It's really interesting, Rishi, when you say this, because you, of course, got the influence of TISB. And so, are you telling me that it was an environment where, the creative arts was not something that you felt that you stuck out like a sore thumb, with people who are all trying to go into the Ivy League colleges, and and would that also be in a certain way? Did you feel dejected with maybe friends probably not understanding what you're trying to say and what you see of yourself as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I think, to be fair, TSB is a fantastic, especially for a school in India, it has a fantastic creative arts program. It has fantastic theater department, music department. Couldn't have, I really enjoyed my time there. I think, and I think what I, and when I did take initiative, people always supported me, which I was very grateful for. I think it was easy to inspire people and motivate them to work with me. I think sometimes I just felt maybe slightly frustrated that there isn't more of an existing environment for me to be part of, because in high school I had to take the initiative for a lot of things, right? So I introduced TISB's first slam poetry competition. I introduced TISB's first film festival. Um, Things like that. But that being said, there was already like school productions and theater festivals during school fests and everything. So it was a great place. I think another place you mentioned this phrase, stuck out like a sore thumb. I would say the only place where I felt that was not within the school community itself, but in terms of pursuing things professionally, because I think the perspective in that in this Indian high school was that it's an academically rigorous high school, and the most academic subjects or academic the only subjects that have academic merit are things that make money. So that's economics, business, computers, like science, math, etc. And even Indian culture, at least for the last 100, 200 years, we've had this emphasis after the British instituted their kind of the Anglicist system of education. We've had this emphasis on science and math and technology, and which is why the best universities in India are IITs, and of course, there's like Delhi University and JNU and everything. But I think that always is seen as secondary to the IITs because of their emphasis on the humanities. Anyway, coming back to TISB, so that's what I felt like. I felt kind of scared sometimes when I'm like, nobody around me, like everyone around me wants to do kind of pursue lucrative careers, and I felt kind of I was taking a risk. I felt that I was doing that, and so I sometimes I wish I had more support from my community, but I'm glad that I didn't sometimes, because ultimately I'm glad that I did, because it forced me to really believe in myself, and that's ultimately what keeps you going.
It's such a wonderful line, actually, Rishi, to start believing in yourself, and you're so young. So, you know what? I just want to talk about a recent New York Times article that describes the movie business as disoriented. It says that run towards streaming. No, wait, we have to keep theaters alive. Run the other way. In all of this, what happens to filmmakers who make shorts? Isn't that already a tough spot to be in? Because, me, with my own experience of having recently written my own book, my debut book is a stories, and those are all very, very hard to sell than a novel or narrative nonfiction. So, what would you say about this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's been, I think overall it's been good in terms of accessibility, because there are just so many more platforms you can release your content on for free and reach millions of eyeballs. Like earlier, before YouTube and Vimeo and TikTok were a thing, you'd make a short film, and then the pretty much the only way people would see it were two outlets. Like A was a theater showed it, or B is it got accepted to a festival, and then again a theater showed it in the festival. And now you don't need to do any of that. It's just so much cheaper, right? You can just for free you upload it anywhere. TikTok, YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram, Facebook, so many different platforms, and you can reach so many eyeballs through that. And even festivals, a lot of what they're doing nowadays is just streaming these films on demand on Vimeo instead of having a physical event and like showing films in theaters, which is more expensive. So in a way, it's good because it's easier to upload your film. It's easier for people to find it, to watch it, because sometimes like the algorithm will just pick up like random key phrases or keywords from your film, and suddenly something will go viral, right? Like that viral phenomenon couldn't exist without streaming and without the internet. So that's helpful, but also, of course, it takes away the kind of a sort like a level of control and a level of authenticity, because now it's like even if you go like it isn't as long lasting, right? Like in the age of the internet, like the phrase is anyone can be famous, but that fame lasts like only a second, right? Because it's just like it's a constant churn of new content, and there isn't there isn't as much merit attached to just one single piece of content. So yeah, I think the struggle right now that I think there's something I've been thinking a lot about is how do you kind of balance two things. A is reaching as many people as you can and having as many people watch your film, while at the same time B, remaining true to your voice and not being afraid to do something strange and something authentic and something original and something different, which and these two things I do think are on opposing ends because what sells and what gets a lot of eyeballs is something that is comfortable to watch, something that is fun and easy. And sometimes when you're trying to be original, it's a bit unconventional and unorthodox. So it's trying to find the balance between the two is always difficult, but yeah, you've got to keep up with the times.
So tell me about film festivals. Have you attended any in New York since things have opened up?
Yeah, so I've been attending a film festival the last few days actually. It's my film isn't in this one, but it's the Columbia University Film Festival. It's for all the MFA students, so the master's students in films. They're premiering their thesis films here, and so that's on the the theater, which is the film department has a theater, and so you go there every night. I go, it was like 3.5 hours, just sit and like watch so many different short films, and that's just fantastic. And my film, Faust's Facade, has been accepted to a couple of festivals. They none of them in New York, so I haven't been able to attend them because semester, been busy with classes. But yeah, there's one in Virginia in the next week, I think. But I'll be traveling, so I won't be able to go. But that's all. That's in a theater, and that's a bit more conventional. But I think New York is a great place to be. For the film scene, I think that's a beautiful thing about film is it's very. I think in contemporary culture, we have a huge tendency to just idealize the writer and the director, and we're like, oh, the director, like he made this film, or like Sanjay Leela Bhansali made this film. He's a genius, he's a poet. I think what working in film and being immersed in a film community has made me realize is how deeply collaborative making films is. And so, for a film culture to flourish anywhere, you need to have, um, you know, film festivals and film meetups and places where people can congregate. And so that's what I do. I just go to. I went to the New York Film Festival last year at some point. Just met so many interesting people there, like film critics, film students, professional filmmakers, and that's what it is. It's about being immersed in a community. And even if you don't want to make films, if you're really interested in films, I don't think you can truly understand what film culture is and what filmmaking and how film fits into society unless you go to a film festival and you be a part of that community, because that's what film is. Film is ultimately more than just a medium and more than just something you do for fun. It's a community.
Do you find yourself conscious of being cocky, like dropping names, from the movie business, which is so heard of and it's almost synonymous with filmmakers? So tell me a little bit about it.
Do I find myself being cocky?
Yeah, like dropping names, from the movie business, because most people, when they are in this business, as it's told, that, you drop names and the collaboration and the entire, this whole collaborative work that we are all in, it opens doors. It also, do you see yourself doing that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think I I do drop names to kind of. But I would let me say this. Let me start off by saying this. I don't know any like people big enough, or I haven't worked with any celebrities to be able to drop big names and be cocky about it. I think when I'm networking and when I'm trying to find jobs, I like because the whole business is about relationships. You have to mention people you've worked with. So I'll go up to people and be like, "Hey, I worked with this director. I worked on this director's film." And these are all like like up and coming directors. So, but everyone kind of knows each other because New York City's film scene, especially, is very tight. It's very small, so everyone kind of knows each other, and so that's always helpful. They're like it's an immediate kind of stamp of approval, right? Like, oh shit, like you worked on his film. Okay, I know he's a good filmmaker. He trusted you, so I'm going to trust you. So here's the job. I anticipate, if things go well, as I move up in the film world and as I get to meet and work with more talented people and celebrity type people, I'll ultimately kind of end up dropping those names. Maybe I'll get cocky. Who knows? I hope not. I'll work very hard to ensure that I'm not. But right now, I don't find myself being cocky particularly because there's nothing to be cocky about. But it is true. I think you've touched on an important point. Is the business is all about relationships, and so you kind of have to do that a little bit. You have to be very social and just maintain a good relationship with people all around you, even people who are working under you, who are working above you, because things move very fast. Someone who's your assistant on one film, on the next film, you might be their assistant, especially when you're coming up. up and coming. So it's you have to be very socially malleable and astute.
This is fantastic, because for people who are listening to us and who are going to go on to, studying films and taking up films, which is so much of self-investment, self-reflection, a lot of courage, because, it is in India, it is it's an unorganized sector, and, to make yourself successful, to stand out, is very, very difficult. So thank you so much for saying this with so much candor. Now, I have to ask you one question. Studying philosophy is quite a choice given the times that we are in, of uncertainty. What hopes do you have for the future? Please tell me this without quoting any philosopher, please.
I decided to study philosophy because I wanted to have something to make films about. And I think that cinema is an important medium to study, and I think film is worth studying. But and you might relate to this as well, as a writer, as an author, um, it's not enough to just master the medium and the style and the technique, but ultimately what you say has to be of some substance, and you have to capture a very unique perspective um, on the world, and something that people can relate to, and something that's true. And that's I think that's what my goal in studying philosophy was. And so, what are my hopes for the future? That's a good question. I'm really not sure. I haven't defined it very. I like to take things as they come. I'd like to be able to write and direct my own films. Um, Hopefully, the kind of films I want to make. Because, of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's always this balancing act between what is commercially viable, what does the audience want to see, what do studios want to produce on one hand, versus what is your authentic voice, what you want to say. And those things, when they align, it's amazing, and oftentimes they conflict. And so it's navigating that. And like in the immediate future, I want to write a couple of more short films, make them produce like a thesis level short film within the next few years, something very professional. And then maybe start working on features, get a manager, get an agent, just see where things go. I think, on top of studying philosophy, Mohua, I think something I really value is experiencing life. I think that's absolutely essential as any kind of, well, I think everyone should, but especially if you're a creator, if you're an artist, I think what you say about the world has to necessarily be informed by your experience of the world. So that's what I'm also constantly trying to do, is constantly trying to push myself out of my comfort zone and do things I never would have done otherwise. So that kind of, one thing I strongly believe is, the more you open yourself up to the world, the more the world opens itself up to you. And just, maybe it's a bit of a poetic sentiment, but the world is so vast, and there's just so many different worlds within this world. And my goal is to just try and immerse myself as much as I can, and as many of them as possible, and kind of learn something about myself and about the world in that process, so that when I sit down to write, there's something unique and something rich there on the paper. And so that when people watch what I make, it's not only true, but it's unique, and it's something special, and something worth spending 2 hours of your life on.
So, do you think you would be questioned more had you studied philosophy in India? You're a young man, and of course, like we spoke in the beginning, that you're expected naturally to take up a subject with a very lucrative career, and by lucrative, I mean monetarily. No, so is it easier to study philosophy in the West?
I think so. Yes, I think so. Uh, Especially coming from the background of Bangalore, right, which is very kind of tech oriented and finance oriented. And I think it's easier in the West because of also, like, the liberal arts institution, like the liberal arts concept in American colleges. Also, I think it's a to like let's be completely honest here. I think I find it easier to study also because I'm at a place like Columbia, which is an Ivy League university. It's a prestigious university. It's very academic. Like, I think the most popular major, even in the US, if you look at the numbers across the US, is business, right? And like business, econ, CS, those are the most popular majors in the West as well. So I think like everyone wants something lucrative. I think in the West, because of the liberal arts concept, especially at prestigious universities, the whole funda is that you can study whatever you want, and if you have a degree from a good university, you'll get hired. So the whole thing they pitch to us here is, oh, you can study English, you can study philosophy, you can study anthropology and classics and ancient Greek and whatever, but you'll still be hired by BCG and McKinsey and et cetera, because well, you went to you've demonstrated like analytical ability by if you get good grades in anything, and B, you have a degree from Columbia. So that's I think the one thing to keep in mind is just the different ways in which higher education operates in these two different cultures in the West, so to speak, and in India. And B is yeah, I mean, I think culturally speaking, I think you're right. Is I think India, every time I've told someone who's not immediate family that I'm studying philosophy, like a relative or a family friend or whatever, I've gotten such amusing reactions. People are like, "Oh, so you want to be like an inspirational speaker?" Or, "Oh, wow, like so you just want to sit and like think all day? Like, what's the point of that?" And I think it's people have very antiquated kind of understandings of what philosophy is, and they don't see it as something worth pursuing in and of itself as a way of thinking, as an analytical way of looking at the world. Same with English and literature or poetry even. So I think that yeah, I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky that I've been able to pursue what I want without as many obstacles as I would have had to face if I stayed in India for college. But um, I think hopefully that should change because there's just been this huge influx or outflow of young people abroad from India to study, not just for not to attend not only college but also masters, and I think that's opening up a lot of people's perspectives, and so the next generation hopefully should be a lot more open-minded and a lot more progressive in these matters. And so I have high hopes. I think that I don't think hopefully in the next after 40 years in 2060 you don't have to go abroad to a place like Columbia to study philosophy. Already, places like Ashoka have like a fantastic philosophy department. My professors at Columbia talk about Ashoka um, uh, as a great place to study philosophy. So I think India is shifting more towards that, and I'm excited to see how it changes and be a part of that.
So tell us if growing up in Bangalore, informed your choices as a student and a creator.
That's a good question. So um, I've spent most of my time in Bangalore growing up, but I moved around a lot. So I was born in the U.S. and then moved to India, lived in a variety of different places, near Delhi, Hyderabad, and then moved to Bangalore. And then again, like during my high school years, I went back to the U.S. and then came back, and then graduated high school and then came back. So just grew up moving around a lot. Um, and so I think that's what I would say shaped a lot of my perspectives, not only well as a creator but also as a person, is just kind of forcing myself. I was forced to kind of adapt very quickly, and I consider Bangalore my home because that's where I've spent most of my life. But I always had to like kind of be comfortable meeting new people and kind of uh, become like immersing myself in new places like very quickly, and I think that made me and my family very adaptable. And I think that's what that's a good question. I think I've never quite taken the initiative on my own to connect that to what I want to do as a creator, but I think that lends itself to my maybe what I want to do is immerse myself in these different worlds. And it's kind of like being in a new city or being in a new culture. It's like acquainting yourself with different ways of doing things, because I think that's just something so fascinating. It's like it's like I lived in Bangalore and then I moved to, like, let me give you an example. Like, so when I was 15, my family moved to California, and so I attended a public high school in California for a year, and it's just a completely different way of doing things, right? Like, I've grown up pretty much in India. Suddenly, I'm like the 10th grade. I'm just in California. It was like different, different kinds of people, different school system, different ways of getting around, different ways of doing groceries, of living everything. And it's just, that was hard, of course, adjusting to that. But I think it was just, in retrospect, it was so much fun. Is like kind of, you realize that, wow, like, uh, people live their lives in such different ways, but at the end of the day, everyone wants the same thing, which is to be happy and to have good relationships and find meaning in their work and, eat good food and those kinds of things. And so that's what is interesting, is seeing all these different ways that humans and the world likes to do things and operates, and finding what's kind of universal about the human condition in that. And maybe that's what I'd like to do with my films.
You're studying really a lot and you've chosen philosophy. Now tell me, do you feel an intellectual burden ever?
Wow, that's funny. No, I don't think so. I mean, do I feel an intellectual burden? I think I used to.
Yeah.
I think I used to. I think.
How did you cope with that?
How to cope with that? I was very arrogant about it.
That's not coping, Rishi.
Coping, yeah, I know it's very unhealthy, right?
Yes, it is. So was that also one of the reasons that you chose the film, Faust Facade, because it came, from this whole experience of yourself as a person?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the lines also tend to blur, right? I mean, I don't think that the protagonist of this film is me. It's not a reflection of who I am. And it's not a story of my life either. Like, I've never been in this situation, and this character is very different from who I am. And I would say that I've taken qualities of all the different kinds of people I know, and like each character is inspired inevitably by the people you know. So it's, like Nicole and the film, who's the female, like the film director. She's inspired by so many people I know. The protagonist is inspired. Colin is inspired by so many people I know. So I would say that the part of me that's in the film, if I had to say just one thing, would be maybe like kind of the theme of like unchecked ambition. But again, I don't think that that's particular to me. I think everyone's faced that. And so, I don't think I've ever felt the kind of intellectual burden that, Nick feels in the film, but I think ultimately, yeah, and I don't think this film is about me. I think this film was inspired by something I've felt, which I think everyone has felt, and that's what I wanted to. I wanted to share that. I wanted to partake in that experience collectively by having people watch the film.
So thank you so much, Rishi, for being in today's episode. And before I end, there would be a lot of our listeners who'd want to know, when did this term metaverse originate? It originated in the 1992 science fiction novel Snow Crash as a portmanteau of meta and universe. Metaverse development is often linked to advancing virtual reality technology due to increasing demands for immersion. But of course, I mean, these are also very exaggerated. These are buzzwords to exaggerate development progress of various related technologies and projects, for public relations purposes. But yes, we are all learning that the world is changing and things are changing. And just before I end, I would very, very philosophically use one of Faust's quote that says, "Oh my, but art is long and our life is fleeting." Thank you so much, Rishi Chhapolia, for being on today's episode. And thank you, and wish you lots and lots of luck in your career.
Thank you so much, Mohua. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for listening.
To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk ईमानदारी से.